back here on the program, our friend from Pro Football Talk and Peacock and NBC, PFT Live with Mike Florio podcast as well. Mike Florio, good to see you. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. You needed the music. The
Yep.
read was awesome. You needed the music. And I can envision season 2, episode 3, Jim and Mike mix up their glasses because if you haven't noticed, the prescription between the two is very different.
It's very different. I know. I thought that Jim should start wearing Mike's glasses, and or Lululemon needs to make a capri khaki. You know what I mean? Like show off some ankle. You know what I mean?
Possibilities are limitless.
They are limitless.
7 seasons at least.
I am thrilled to have you on this program, Mike. I want to give you the floor on Terry Pegula's press conference today and how that hits you.
Well, number one, it was way too long, which is excellent for our business.
Yes.
I think I have a list of maybe 10, 12 different PFT posts that either have gone up or will go up as a result of the things that were said during that rollicking. Like, you usually hear time for 2 more very quickly at a press conference like that. They went on and on and on. And it's in the eye of the beholder. I've been arguing with some people whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. I think the prevailing view is, all told, I don't think it was a great session, and it raises more questions than it answers. I think the idea of a press conference is you want to resolve questions. I don't think it resolved many questions, and I give the folks there credit. A lot of times we see the reporters that cover a team tiptoe around because you worry about access and relationships. They asked all the right questions. They did their duty on behalf of the fans who want to know how the hell we got to this point.
Well, I think the question that got answered emphatically, Mike, is that Terry Pegula clearly trusts Brandon Beane implicitly and also trusts him to move this franchise forward to a Super Bowl way more than he trusted Sean McDermott to do it. And even spilled some tea that, Keon Coleman might have to clean up with his play in year 3 for whoever the new head coach is. I mean, and leading to the questions that you mentioned about not being answered, it led to other questions being asked, like who are the draft choices that are yours and yours alone, Brandon, right? Like those are the one. He was doing what he thought was the right thing in caping for the guy that he elevated. But it did lead to more questions on that front.
Yeah, the overriding question that was hovering over the Bills weeks before, if not years before, the firing of Sean McDermott is whether or not the failure of the team to get to a Super Bowl is a result of talent or a result of coaching. The firing of Sean McDermott, coupled with the promotion of Brandon Beane, tells us that Terry Pegula resolved that issue in favor of saying it's a coaching problem, not a talent problem. But then we get this mix in there that some of the talent was the fault of the coaching staff because the coaching staff wanted this guy and Brandon Beane was a team player and didn't push back. And I take a step back generally, and I'm not saying Brandon Beane should have been fired. I'm saying that the properly functioning football operations have the coach and the GM joined at the hip. And if it works, everybody benefits. And if it doesn't, everybody's accountable, because I think we learned today it's virtually impossible to make a clear and reliable decision as to who's to blame when you have one of these situations where you keep knocking on the door but you can't kick it open. 7 straight playoff appearances. Terry Pegula rattled off the seeds for the last 7 years, and nobody knew what he was talking about. He starts spitting out numbers like it's Powerball night, and like, what do you? Those are the seeds for the last 7 years, but they've never been the 1 seed, and they never gotten to the Super Bowl. And so it's the coach's fault, and that puts enormous pressure on the next coach. They tried to say there's no pressure. They're getting calls about the job. Yeah, you're always going to get calls about an open NFL job, even if it's one of the dysfunctional teams. The question is, what's this next coach stepping into, and what is his burden going to be? You got to get at least as far as Sean McDermott, or you're a failure, and you're expected to get farther than Sean McDermott because we've already established conclusively it's not an issue with the talent of the team.
Now we have 10 job openings in all, 4 of which have been filled already, Mike. Your sense of the room read here, based on, your reporting and also talking to everyone, why have we seen so much turnover, including two guys, one who resigned and one who got fired, of 18 plus years of tenure. And I looked it up, Mike. That's never happened in any North American sport. We've never had in baseball, basketball, NBA, or NHL, two coaches as tenured as Harbaugh and Tomlin not return in the same coaching cycle. That's never happened. Why do you think this is happening?
I think it's a combination of factors that led to a perfect storm as we were trying to map out where the vacancies would be beyond the two that came up during the season. And there were only two. It seemed kind of light this year from interim coaching arrangements with the Titans and the Giants. As we got to week 18, the Raiders and the Browns were the two that everybody basically knew were coming. How many more beyond that? That was the question. So you get some of these other arrangements. You're always going to have the cluster of bad teams that stay bad, so they fire coaches every 2 or 3 years, and it's the usual suspects who are swinging back around looking for more coaches. But then you have the Harbaugh situation, Tomlin, McDermott on top of that. We get to this spot where there's 10 jobs to be filled. And so far, first-time head coaches, guys with no head coaching experience at the NFL or college level, are being shut out. And I wonder how long that trend will continue, because you do take a calculated risk when you take a guy who is X's and O's and you put him in charge of the team. And I think a lot of these teams see the benefit of finding someone who has shown he can be a head coach, college or pro, and be successful, because it is a fundamentally different job. So that's one of the things I'm watching as these next 6 get filled. How many first-time coaches are going to end up with the jobs?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess who would be a non-first-time head coach you could wind up with a job would be, I guess, obviously Mike McCarthy or anybody else that just got fired. What are you hearing about the Steelers' job search right now?
Well,
Mike?
The Steelers are being very deliberate. They're casting a very broad net. They're turning over a lot of different stones. And, you know, when you have nailed 3 straight coaching searches dating back to the first Nixon administration, probably the year the Odd Couple debuted in 1969, you have more pressure on you to get the next one right. And if they get this one right, the pressure is going to be suffocating the next time around. So their pattern has been established. Even though it's only 3 hires, it's a 57-year trend. Defensive coordinator, first-time head coach. That's why I've been paying attention to Chris Shula. It just makes sense on a bunch of different levels, including the fact that Chuck Noll, 15 days before he became the head coach of the Steelers, he coordinated the defense for the Baltimore Colts, who lost to your New York Jets in Super Bowl III. The head coach was Don Shula. Shula recommended Noll for the Steelers job, and there's just a symmetry to all of that. And the Steelers have a sense of history and connections, and it won't surprise me if Chris Shula ends up getting that job. But are the Steelers going to go a different way? One thing to keep in mind, the NFL has changed dramatically since 2007 when they hired Tomlin. It's skewed even more toward offense and player safety. And will the Steelers believe that their past formula of a defensive coach needs to yield to what the rest of the league is doing? Because when you look at the Steelers offense, since Ben Roethlisberger retired, and they don't intend to be in position to draft another franchise quarterback, they need to find a way to goose the offense. So I really do think that they are looking anywhere and everywhere. And the problem with having a lot of great choices and a lot of people who are going to want that job, because it's a desirable job because they don't fire coaches, you ultimately got to make a decision. And that just adds even more stress to the situation.
Do you think the Ravens are going to hire a similar style of person, CEO, play caller, X's and O's, or maybe the person I always thought of was Minter, Jesse Minter, because he's a Harbaugh, defensive-minded coach. They did have one of those already in Mike McDonald. Look at what he's doing. He's 2 wins away from the Super Bowl. They weren't going to keep him, and they certainly weren't going to fire John Harbaugh at the time because they were coming off of an AFC Championship game appearance that didn't go their way. But what do you think the Ravens' mindset is here, Mike?
Hovering over the Ravens' coaching decision, I believe, is the tenuous relationship with Lamar Jackson. And it drives Ravens fans crazy when we talk about it, but he's under contract for 2 more years. He's got a no-tag clause in addition to his no-trade clause. And they need to resolve whatever this vibe is that's just been there. And one of the core problems is he's never had an agent, and communication can be a problem. It took them multiple years to work out his current contract. As of last year, he was ready for an adjustment. The market has changed. He deserves a new contract. Can they get something done? And how will he feel about who they hire. If it's an experienced head coach with an offensive background, he may feel one way. If it's a first-time coach with a defensive background, he may feel differently. And Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the team, talked last Tuesday at a press conference about getting Lamar involved and how involved he'll be. And basically, and his quote was something along the lines of, hey, you better be ready to get your ass on a plane and go talk to these guys. How involved is he? There's been no reporting about how Lamar has been involved in this coaching search. I think how he feels. And remember, the coaching search 2021 in Houston, the lawsuits obscured all that. Deshaun Watson's relationship with the Texans became permanently fractured because he had ideas for coach and GM, and he believed they were ignored. So I think that's a key fact that's kind of just there. And we'll see. The next big step in Baltimore is who do they hire? And I think there's a good chance Lamar is going to feel one way about an offensive coach who's been a head coach and a different way about a first-time coach from the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think you're also kind of previewing March Madness in the NFL, Mike, where you heard Joe Burrow opine about happiness, right? You're referring to what's going on with Lamar. And I'm just wondering if Matthew Stafford wins his next two games, what does he do in Los Angeles, right? He's playing such a high level. He seems to be enjoying himself. I know I'm kind of kicking a hornet's nest here, but if there is this movement on the coaching carousel that is spinning in such a way that you and I have not seen in the last quarter century of covering this sport, right? What happens if there's a quarterback opening for Sean McVay in Los Angeles? Who would be the ones to potentially affect their movement to be the next one there, See what I'm saying?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Before 2020, there weren't that cluster of veteran quarterbacks with starting experience that were readily available. Starting with the Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees was a free agent. He stayed in New Orleans for another year.
Right.
But every year now we have the coaching carousel that goes full speed. It winds to a stop. And then we get to the quarterback carousel, where you look at the teams that we know are going to be in the market for starters. We look at the teams that may end up looking for starters. We look at situations like the Rams. They're on a year-to-year arrangement with Matthew Stafford. They've said that themselves. Now, they may feel differently, and they do have him under contract for another year. So they may be fine not going year to year. They may be fine with Stafford's contract as it is, and it is going to deserve an adjustment based upon what he's due to make in 26. But the one team that I've been watching the most closely as it relates to Lamar Jackson, because when Mike Preston of the Baltimore Sun had that column from last month that kind of started a little firestorm of discussion about the relationship between Lamar and the Ravens.
Right.
He mentioned the Dolphins and the Raiders. The Dolphins can't do it with the Tua contract and the cap consequences, but how about the Raiders? They need something. They need to make a big swing. I saw that someone tweeted, who covers the Raiders, that their days of making big swings are over. Well, when did their days of making big swings start? And more of this now is going to stick to Tom Brady. He's got to come do something. And that's one, people get upset because we try to, it's the old Gretzky thing. Don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where you think the puck's going to be. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to skate to where I think the puck's going to be, and I'm trying to envision these possibilities. And we've already seen crazy beyond what we would have expected in the coaching cycle, so we got to be ready for anything. But yeah, as I sit back and just watch and wait and wonder and monitor, and the quarterback carousel starts to spin, man, the Raiders making a call and dangling that first overall pick for Lamar Jackson, wouldn't that be something if that happens?
No, for sure. And I mentioned Stafford just because, I think he's at the top of his game. He seems to love life right now, and there's no questions about his future for good reason, because he's so awesome and the Rams can win it all with him. And if they do, then it's his oyster. That's the football world, right? And same thing with the Rams. And if he decides to say, I want to go hang out with my beautiful family full time now, and that, because he was the first quarterback of that spinning carousel off of which every move was made last year. And I'm wondering if that might happen again. I'm trying to go where the puck is being skated to, because who wouldn't want to be Sean McVay's quarterback in the NFL?
Right.
Everyone.
And look, last year, And it all turned out to be a leverage play by Stafford, and I think it frustrated both the Giants and the Raiders, who were the two teams that were most aggressively pursuing Matthew Stafford when he had permission to seek a trade.
And by the way, was that a good move by him or what, Mike? What do you think? Well, what he eventually did?
Yeah, it worked out well, but the Rams still got a deal. Like, he didn't squeeze all that much more out of the Rams by doing it. But at the end of the day, the decision was made that he was never going to leave, and this was just about getting the best possible offer out of the Rams. But he was the guy that everyone was waiting on. And remember, last year, plan B for Sean McVay was Aaron Rodgers. And that would have been something. And where would the Rams be this year with Aaron Rodgers and not Matthew Stafford? I don't know. But the Rams had their fallback plan in place. And once they finish their playoff run, and they're going to have compressed time if they make it to the Super Bowl, job number one becomes this year-to-year thing with Stafford. Does he want to keep playing? What does he want to be paid? What do we want to do? Do we want to get a year or two ahead of a potential decline? He's shown no signs of one. Now, we went through 4 or 5 weeks before training camp and in the early weeks of training camp wondering if he was going to be able to play at all this year because of a back issue that popped up between the offseason program and the start of camp. But he looks great. He keeps going. He's arguably better than he's ever been. First time he's been a first-team All-Pro, potentially the NFL MVP. I think it would be craziness for the two sides to not keep going, but craziness is what's unfolded over the last 2 weeks. So that's why we have to be ready for anything.
That's part of the reason why I'm bringing it up here, dishing while waiting for football to be played this weekend. Before I let you go, your opinion and thoughts about Championship Sunday are what?
Well, what an opportunity for the Broncos. You know, coaches and players love to manufacture disrespect, and nobody believes in this, and they'll make it up Michael Jordan style if they have to.
Right.
This is a perfect opportunity for the Broncos. Do they really lose a tremendous amount by going from Bo Nix to Jarrett Stidham? I mean, they have a great defense. Nix isn't flinging it around like Stafford. Nothing against Bo Nix. He's not to where he eventually will be as a student of Sean Payton. And Jarrett Stidham's been with Payton a year longer than Bo Nix. And if Payton didn't think Stidham could do it, he wouldn't have been the guy one snap away from becoming the quarterback. I think Payton loves the fact that they're 5.5-point underdogs. I think he loves the fact that everybody's graphic when it's time to do the pregame shows anywhere and everywhere, it's going to be Patriots, 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 Patriots. Nobody's going to pick the Broncos to win the game. So it just plays into their hands. And the Patriots all time in Denver in the postseason, 0-4, 0-3 during the Belichick and Brady years, 3 times with one of the great teams we've ever seen over a 20-year span. 3 times they went to Denver and lost in the playoffs. So I think that game is not nearly the gimme putt that Patriots fans may be thinking. And the other game, hell, get your popcorn and hope for a repeat of the Week 16 Thursday night back and forth game. And the Rams gained 581 yards against the Seahawks that night. That defense right now looks a little bit better. I don't think they're going to get 581 this time, but, man, that's the game that the moment it happened, the moment it ended, I think we all said we want to see that one again.
Creator and editor-in-chief of Pro Football Talk, PFT Live, the podcast version as well. Mike, appreciate the time, brother. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Good talking to you.
That right back at you. That's Mike Florio sending him back to Peacock and NBC. As he's going to be part and parcel of the Super Bowl 60 coverage there, no doubt. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.